right, so this lesson I'm going to go into something that I have not seen covered, and maybe it is, but it's something I came up with. I borrowed it from Keith Richards, and he stole it from Cooder. So thank you, Keith. Thank you, Rye. And so I basically took this concept, as some of you may know, with Keith's stuff, and I've taught a little bit of this. He generally plays in an open G tuning. He happens to lose the low E string. That's a whole other subject. But that has to do with playing with a band, okay? When you got a bass player, you don't need that low E string down to a D most often because it just gets in the way. So in Keith's inimitable style and brilliance, he came up with that 5-string version. But what I came up with, when I did my first album, Bad and Blue, I have a song called Shade of Blue in the key of E, and I did a bunch of other tunes that this applies to. And I wanted to be able to play rhythm, play like a low E rhythm thing and still get that minor third sound, which is when you take the high E string and you tune it down to D. Now many of you have heard that because when you do G tuning, it has that sound, right? You can get that sort of sus lick that I'm about to show you. But what's important about what I came up with, I think, and maybe this will work for you as well, I didn't want to give up being able to use my low strings for rhythm and for comping. And I'll give you an example of that. Like, so if I'm in the key of E and I want to get just kind of a bluesy rhythm, kind of a rock blues thing. But I also want to have the option of getting that Keith sound. Take that high E down to D and you get the minor third and you play, you all know an A minor chord, obviously, right? It looks like that. Well, if you lift up your third finger, you get an A minor 7th, because the G is a 7th, right, to A. So if you look at that and go, that's essentially what Keith works with in a lot of his stuff. Now, if you move that up a bit and you do like a power chord, like I was just doing, like an E power chord up here on the 7th fret, here's the 7th fret, 7th to the 9th. If you move up to the 9th fret on the high 4 strings and you do that very move, it's like a sus move. But up here, there it is, right? There's that magic Keith sound. Rye and a lot of other people, Black Crows use it. But a lot of those people will actually do it in G tuning, which is fine. Except if you don't have the luxury of 2 guitars and one person playing in G tuning and another who's going to hold down the rhythm, right? Now on my recording, I did have 2 guitars. I had a buddy playing rhythm guitar, but for live, I don't always have that luxury. And I quickly realized going on tour, when I did my first tour of Europe, with the Robert Cray Band, the guys in the Cray Band is my backing band. I stole them away when he wasn't looking. And we did a long tour of Europe, and I needed to be able to not only play the low stuff, but I also needed to be able to go up and get, and on my turnaround I wanted to go. I think you can hear what the voicing does by using that high string down to a D, from a high D down to a D. It just gives you that great sort of, that sound. And Start Me Up, and should be noted, Start Me Up is in F because of the capo, but if you follow a lot of Keith Richards stuff and Rye's stuff and a lot of other people, but in the rock idiom especially, this really works, okay? And then the other thing that you can do is if you're moving up and down the neck, like for instance, if I'm in the key of A, I'll just play a straight up A chord like that, and I can get kind of a rhythm going. That's a different voicing than if you have it in standard tuning. It's definitely a different voicing, okay? And so I use that a lot. I do a cover of Bob Dylan's It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. that uses that as well. I use it all the time. And I also use it if I actually recorded something in G tuning, and I don't have the luxury of doing all the full G tuning, which is, you get your A down to G and your E down to D. Or some people will move the E all the way up to a high G. I've heard that done too, the low E. That's a whole other conversation, and I do cover that in a lot of my lessons. But I wanted to share this with you because I think for you electric players especially, this especially applies to ensemble playing if you're playing with a band. And I'll give you a couple examples of it, and then I'll also show you something else, some secret sauce that I also use it for. So if I'm playing, again, in the key of E is a perfect example. What am I doing there? I'm going from an A to from an E to an A. It's almost like a pedal steel. And so you can use that up and down the neck. So how that works is, you know that if you're doing your power chords, some people call them, your this position, and it actually it hits that B note, right? Because it's down a full step. So you hit what would normally look like this, like that, but it's all you got to do is hit a bar right across, and you get the full E chord. That's kind of cool. But more importantly, if you move up here and you do that sus move, you can do it either like this or like, for example, one of the most often heard licks, especially in Scorsese movies, obviously Gimme Shelter. There's so many ways you can utilize this, and not just in the Keith idiom, but in your own. You can make it your own. So yeah, I use it like if you're in A like that. Obviously, this is B flat, B, and so on. C, just move right up the neck. It can be used on any of those chords in any key. You can get that. I've heard it used in, like, I think David Grissom, who played with John Mellencamp. He uses that sound. But I've never actually heard this approached in a lesson way to do just this little, like I call it a half tuning. It's like a half G tuning, because you still have your A and your E natural. But I thought it was something worth sharing with you. And the other thing I was going to say is, for me, I don't know about you guys, maybe slide players out there, but for me it comes in handy when I'm playing slide. I can get that kind of gnarly, salty. That sound that only can be gotten, the only other way you can do that is if you're in open E tuning, and you can do it on the G and the B string, you get that minor third. But in terms of in natural tuning, it's almost impossible to get, you have to bend to get that really cool Cooder sound. I'm running through two amps right now. I'm running through a magnetone and a somatone, and I can go back and forth with it. And so yeah, it's just one of the many ways to find cool voicings and be able to use it. But in this case, I can use it without stressing out on, oh gosh, I got to tune down my low strings and my high strings. It's going to go out of tune. It's going to take time. I don't have time for that live. Live, I've got to get to it right away. But I can tune my high E down a step to D. That's pretty quick. It's not not that hard to do. And boy, do I get some mileage out of it. And I got an upcoming gig. I'm playing at the Sweetwater in Mill Valley, where I'm from, San Francisco. And I'm just thinking in terms of, okay, like, because I did a song called Six String Man. It goes like... And I realize it does not work if I don't have that that E down to D. You know, I can do it. I can just go, you know, but it's not the same as that sound. The minor third, just really, really cool. So I just wanted to share that with y'all, and I hope you got something out of it. And by the way, I'm loving getting lots of comments and like that on my Instagram and stuff we're sharing. So thank you, Jason, my web guy, for putting those out there. And I really enjoy, you know, getting back and forth with you guys. If you have ideas, I learned so much from you. So I hope you're enjoying the lessons, and I'm going to go deeper into all this kind of stuff as we go. And this is mostly stuff I've learned in the field, just from years and years of slogging it through the, you know, the clubs and the pubs and the big stages and the small ones. And now I'm just here to share my experience from all those gigs and all those, you know, recording sessions and stuff. So I hope you're enjoying it. By the way, that's John Lee Hooker up there. He's looking over us. I got to do a duet with John back in the day, and so I just put his picture up to kind of look over my lessons and, you know, put a little voodoo, a little mojo on it. Okay, I'll see you down the road. Bye-bye.